When I start a talk like this, I always like to ask, what is a project? Everyone has an idea about what a project is, and when you do a Google search for that, you find quite a variety of definitions. The word project can mean different things to different people, but essentially a project is a set of deliverables that are not delivered at the beginning and are completed at the end through the concerted efforts of a group of people all working together to achieve it. So a project is a set of deliverables that have to be delivered by a set of people within a certain time frame and within a certain budget. Along the way, various problems occur. We can certainly expect that, and these problems or issues have to be dealt with by the project team. It's always a good idea to anticipate problems if we can, so we're always looking ahead for the project risks. The owner of the project is also looking continually for confirmation that what he's expecting to pay for the project is not going to change, and that the time to complete will also be as originally forecast. Something that in my experience happens not nearly as often as it should. Over the years I've come to understand, and I'm sure you won't find this in any Google search, that everything in a project, absolutely everything, belongs to one of 7 lists. These lists are central to the principles of project health control, and they're referred to and used continually. We're all very hopeful, quite naturally, at the beginning, that our project, once started, will go through to completion according to schedule, to deliver the deliverables without any problems whatsoever. However, we're always looking for indications of things that might prevent that. We're looking for that elusive small set of risks in the project that might put it off course. Nobody really wants to talk about risks, apart maybe from the project manager who needs to know the assessment so he can tell the project owner. Certainly not the discipline engineers who are all concerned with day-to-day issues. The risk manager is going to be telling the project manager the future of the project. In particular, the amount on the cheque that the project owner might have to write to make up the shortfall between predicted cost and actual cost. He's also going to be telling him when the project actually finished and how long that is over the planned finish date. There are many types of generic risk for particular types of project, but what the project manager really wants to know is what risks are going to affect his project directly, and finding them from risk information gathered by various means. What we find in practice is that risks are hidden among issues, and that for every risk there are quite a number of issues. Everybody wants to talk about issues, as issues are the things that are going on right now in the project. Issues are the things that are causing pain, tying up management and engineering time, holding the project back. Issues are project nuisances. Risks are far more benign, the future seeming to be quite far off. Risks, in fact, may not even happen as far as activities of the workforce are concerned. But issues, these are the focus. People want to talk about their own issues and those that affect them directly. In particular, people like to complain about issues as obstacles in the way of his or his team's progress. Risks and issues are in fact the same thing. A risk hasn't happened yet, and an issue has happened and is probably happening now. So we could say that an issue is a risk with a probability of happening of 100%. Issues are risks in reality. We refer to risks and issues collectively as concerns. Concerns management is a huge part of getting and keeping a project on track. To progress concerns, that is mitigate risks or solve issues, we need to assign actions. So the actions list is closely associated with the concerns list. You see this in various risk registers, though it does cause me some amusement to see this relationship in a spreadsheet. Not easy to map actions with concerns on a spreadsheet, and certainly not anywhere near as effective as using a database. A concern will have one or more actions associated with it, and some actions will be associated with one or more concern. That's where it's difficult to realise this using a spreadsheet. Concerns and actions need people to own them, to solve them, to push them along, to make sure they actually get done. The people list tends, at first, to be limited to the number of people on the project team, but we like to use it eventually to represent the whole project workforce and external stakeholders. But this doesn't mean that it's open-ended. It is in fact limited to the people in and associated with the project. Generally, a concern will have associated with it one or more people. A concern is likely to be associated with a particular location. So we have the locations list. And again, the locations list tends to be finite. Though after the major locations are established, we tend to find some locations drilling down into deeper nests of sublocations. A concern is also normally associated with one or more deliverables. The prime deliverable is the entire plant or pipeline or building. But for the deliverables list, we capture the main deliverables on the project, which fan out into sub-deliverables and sub-sub-deliverables. It's when we're moving deliverables from just conceived to finally implemented, when concerns can and often do arise. The events list is essential in keeping concerns updated. Events for our purposes are meetings, conversations, seminars, an email or email thread. Situations where two or more people have met or corresponded in discussion of a set of items from other lists, mainly concerns or deliverables. For instance, a concern may be associated with one or more events, depending on how many times that concern was discussed. An event is generally closed when all of the concerns in it are closed. You might have started to realise that what we have here is effectively a concerns register. And risk registers would look something like this, where you have each concern associated with columns of characteristics such as actions, locations, events, and deliverables. What we have here differs from a spreadsheet in that we use a relational database that links not only concerns with other things, but other things in other lists with concerns. In fact, each item in each list can link with any item in any of the lists. When we're building our lists, we have this cross-linking very much in our methodology, so that for each concern you can find out what actions, people, events, deliverables associated with it. You should also be able to look at any of the items from any of the other lists. For instance, using people, choosing one person, you should be able to see what items in the other lists are related to that person. So if you're logging into the system and you look at your opening screen, you'll be interested mostly in what the system has to offer to you as a person. Now what you'll see on that opening screen is what's on your plate, which deliverables you're associated with, which events you attended or will need to attend, which locations you're associated with, which actions are yours, which concerns belong to you, and so on. You can take any item from any list, let's say a particular location. You'll be able to see what actions are associated with that location, what people, what concerns, and which deliverables are there. This is a very powerful way to understand the whole project from the perspective of any one of the items in those lists. Now, if we can understand the basic principle here, selecting any item on the list and seeing the project from the perspective of that item, and also the other 6 lists, the next list is going to really make you happy as a person interested in project excellence, the schedule. The schedule list is simply a list of the WBS items, the work breakdown structure, also the schedule's tasks. Now this brings for our project a tremendous opportunity to get right back to using the schedule as a central reference and storage facility for all information about the project status. Everything in a project is on the schedule, or it should be. Looking at it from the point of view of any item on the schedule list, a summary task or individual task, you can see which people, which events, which deliverables and which locations are associated with that particular task. Now this gives us a very powerful means to feed back into the schedule the reality of what's going on in the project, in the field. It also allows us to give information on different parts of the schedule on uncertainty, so we can do quantitative risk analysis. So closing that loop, getting everything into the schedule, so the schedule is one of the lists, is a very powerful tool. It's the use of these lists and the linkage between the elements that is probably the single most important factor in a project health controlled environment that we put in place for a project review. Then leave it in place as a means of project-wide communications for continual clarity of the project's development through to completion, continually seeing what concerns arise from the individual schedule items. Now it's the way we use these lists to control meetings, events, that's important for getting projects back on track. There are 2 types of meeting in project health control: the technical meeting that involves deliverables, and the management meetings that involves concerns. We use these meetings to gather focused, in-context information for straight to the point, rapid resolution of concerns, and keeping strategies for keeping ahead and on track. We haven't talked about the actual mechanisms, procedures and processes for implementation and working of these lists, just the principles. And I hope I've been able to give you a top-level appreciation of how the lists are important in our service on project review and recovery. So we're very much looking forward to being able to tackle some real projects and hope that these talks very soon will result in orders, then see us go into action, working the 7 lists on the very first project.